My parents missed my wedding, but called within hours of my Porsche post. I'm Maya Smith, 28, and this is how I taught my family a lesson they'll never forget. 5 years ago, I walked away from everything they wanted for me: medical school, their approval, their love. They erased me from family photos, skipped my wedding, pretended I didn't exist. But one Instagram photo of a $135,000 car changed everything. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from people who hadn't spoken to me in years. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It all started 5 years ago when I made the worst decision of my life. My family, the Smiths, had been doctors for 3 generations. My grandfather founded one of the most prestigious private practices in Boston. My father, Robert Smith, became chief of surgery at Massachusetts General before starting his own clinic. My mother, Linda, ran the pediatric wing. My older brother, Daniel, followed perfectly in their footsteps. Harvard Medical, top of his class, now a renowned surgeon at 35. Then there was me, the baby of the family, the one who was supposed to complete the medical dynasty. I was actually doing well in medical school. Third year, decent grades, on track for a respectable residency. But during my emergency medicine rotation, something clicked, or rather, unclicked. I watched attending physicians treat patients like case numbers, saw brilliant minds reduced to insurance paperwork, witnessed the soul-crushing bureaucracy of modern medicine. One night, after a 16-hour shift, I sat in my apartment staring at my laptop. My roommate, a computer science PhD student, was building something that could revolutionize patient data management. "You know," she said, "you understand healthcare better than any programmer I know." That conversation changed everything. When I told my parents I was leaving medical school to pursue health technology, my father's face turned purple. "You're throwing away your future for what? Video games?" He spat across the dinner table. My mother cried, actually cried. "We've invested so much in you, Maya. The tutors, the prep courses, the connections. This is about helping more patients than I ever could as one doctor," I tried to explain. Daniel laughed. "Right, because every medical school dropout thinks they're going to change the world with an app." That was the last family dinner I was invited to for 2 years. The signs were subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. My father's 60th birthday came 3 months after I'd left medical school. I found out about the party through my cousin's Instagram story. 100 guests at the country club, a jazz band, Daniel giving a toast about following in Dad's footsteps. My invitation must have gotten lost in the mail. Then came the family Christmas card. Mom always made such a big deal about it, coordinating our outfits, hiring a professional photographer. That year, I received one in the mail like any distant relative. There they were: Mom, Dad, Daniel, his wife Patricia, and their golden retriever. The photographer had done a beautiful job cropping me out of existence. Facebook became a masterclass in selective amnesia. Mom's posts gushed about my brilliant son, the surgeon, but never mentioned having a daughter. When her church friends asked about me, she'd say I was finding myself or exploring options, code for failure in our social circle. At my cousin Rachel's wedding, where I'd somehow made the guest list, the introductions stung the most. "This is Dr. Daniel Smith, our eldest, following in Robert's footsteps at Mass General," Mom would beam, then gesturing vaguely in my direction. "And this is Maya, just Maya, not our daughter Maya, not Maya who's building something incredible, just Maya, like I was someone's plus one who'd wandered into the family photo." Meanwhile, behind my closed apartment door, I was working 18-hour days. My startup was taking shape, an AI-driven platform that could predict patient complications before symptoms appeared. We'd secured our first angel investment. 3 hospitals were interested in pilot programs, but my family didn't know any of this. They never asked, and I'd stopped trying to tell them. My wedding should have been perfect: small, intimate, just the way Marcus and I wanted it. 15 guests in a garden ceremony, people who actually cared about us. At least, that was the plan. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I sent my parents a handwritten invitation. Old-fashioned, the way Mom always said was proper. I even included a personal note about how much it would mean to have them there. Mom's response came via text. We have prior commitments that day. Prior commitments. Not even the courtesy of a phone call or a fabricated excuse about Dad's surgery schedule. Just 5 words that said everything about where I ranked in their priorities. Marcus's family kept asking questions. Where are your parents? Are they flying in the day of? Should we save them seats? His mother, Susan, tried to be diplomatic, but I could see the concern in her eyes. What kind of parents skip their daughter's wedding? The day came. I walked myself down the aisle, head high, smile steady. Marcus squeezed my hand extra tight during the vows, his silent support keeping me grounded. But that empty space where my father should have stood, those missing faces in the front row, they screamed louder than any attendance could have. The real knife twist came that evening. My sister-in-law, Patricia, posted an Instagram story from the country club. There was my entire family, parents, Daniel, aunts, uncles, at Daniel's colleague's golf tournament fundraiser. They were laughing, champagne glasses raised, Mom in a new dress that probably cost more than our entire wedding. They hadn't just missed my wedding. They'd chosen something else, something that mattered more. Marcus found me crying in the bathroom. "We're your family now," he whispered. "The only family you need." The questions from Marcus's family started gently, but grew more pointed over the following weeks. "Maya, dear, we'd love to meet your parents. Should we arrange a dinner?" Susan asked during our first Sunday brunch as newlyweds. "They're very busy," I managed, cutting my pancakes with unnecessary precision. Marcus's father, Tom, a retired teacher who valued family above everything, looked confused. Surely they can make time for their new son-in-law. I became an expert at deflection. My parents were traveling. Dad had emergency surgeries. Mom was at a medical conference. Each lie tasted more bitter than the last, especially watching Susan's face grow more concerned with each excuse. "Is everything okay between you and your family?" she finally asked one evening, pulling me aside while Marcus helped Tom with yard work. "We're here if you need to talk." The shame burned hot in my chest. Here was this woman who'd known me less than 2 years, showing more maternal concern than my own mother had in 5. Marcus never pushed, but I could see him watching me during family gatherings, saw how he'd change subjects when his siblings talked about their in-laws. He'd hold me tighter on the nights when Mom's Instagram posts featured another family dinner I hadn't been invited to. 3 months into our marriage, I made a decision. After the holidays, I would cut them off completely. No more checking their social media, no more hoping for reconciliation, no more leaving the door open for hurt. I drafted the message a dozen times, formal, final, clear boundaries with no room for negotiation. But 3 days after New Year's, before I could hit send, my phone rang. Mom's contact photo, one from years ago when she still smiled at me, filled the screen. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button. I know how it feels when your achievements don't fit their definition of success. Comment below. Have you ever had to prove your worth to family? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries with toxic relatives. Now, let me tell you about the call that changed everything. That call from Mom? I let it go to voicemail. I had bigger things happening. 6 months earlier, our startup had caught the attention of MedTech Ventures, one of the largest healthcare investment firms in the country. What started as a courtesy meeting turned into 6 months of intense due diligence. They flew in teams of analysts. They interviewed our beta hospital partners. They scrutinized every line of code, every financial projection, every patient outcome metric. I lived on 4 hours of sleep, surviving on coffee and determination. My co-founder, James, would find me at my desk at 3 a.m., refining presentations. "Maya, you need to rest." "Rest is for people whose families already believe in them," I'd joke. But it wasn't really funny. The pressure was crushing. We were three engineers and a dream, competing against established companies with millions in funding. But our algorithm was special. It had predicted cardiac events with 94% accuracy in trials, catching problems doctors missed. Then came the email that made my hands shake. Not from MedTech Ventures, but from something bigger. Nexus Technologies, a Fortune 500 company, wanted to discuss an acquisition. This isn't just investment money, our lawyer David Chen explained, his usually calm voice tinged with excitement. They want to buy you outright, integrate your technology into their healthcare division. How much are we talking about? James asked. David slid a paper across the conference table. 8 figures, not including retention bonuses and stock options. This could be life-changing, Maya, David said, looking directly at me. You'd become one of the youngest executives in their healthcare division. Your technology would reach millions of patients. I stared at the number, thinking about all those family dinners where I was the disappointment. Things were about to change. The signing day arrived on a rainy Thursday in March. Nexus Technologies headquarters gleamed with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 23 lawyers, executives, and board members gathered in their main conference room. I wore my best suit, the one Marcus had insisted I buy for when you conquer the world. The CEO, Jonathan Park, shook my hand firmly. Maya, your technology will save lives. We're honored to have you join the Nexus family. 8 signatures, 3 hours of paperwork, one life-changing moment. When the final document was signed, the room erupted in applause. James was crying. Our third co-founder, Beth, was calling her mom. And I stood there, feeling the weight of what we'd just accomplished. The number was staggering. $47 million up front, plus earnouts that could double it. At 28, I was now wealthier than my father, who'd worked his entire life building his practice. How are you celebrating? Jonathan asked. I'm buying myself something I've wanted since I was 16, I said. The Porsche dealership treated me like royalty. A 911 Turbo in Guards Red, impractical, gorgeous, and absolutely mine. When I signed that check for $135,000, I didn't flinch. I'd earned every penny. That evening, sitting in my new car in my apartment's garage, I took a single photo. The steering wheel, the logo gleaming, my hand resting casually on the leather. No caption needed. I posted it on Instagram at 7:43 p.m. At 7:52 p.m., my cousin Rachel liked it. At 7:56 p.m., Daniel's wife Patricia viewed my story. At 8:02 p.m., my phone started ringing. Mom calling. 17 minutes. That's how long it took for my family to suddenly remember I existed. I let it ring twice before answering. Maya, sweetie? Mom's voice dripped honey, a tone I hadn't heard since high school. How are you, darling? Sweetie? Darling? The woman who hadn't called me in 8 months? I'm fine, Mom. We saw your photo. Is that a new car? How wonderful. You must be doing well. A pause. We need to talk. Family meeting tomorrow. Chez Laurent? 7 o'clock. Chez Laurent. The 5-star French restaurant where Dad took his VIP clients, where Daniel had announced his engagement, where I'd never been invited. I don't think, sweetie, we've been so worried about you. We've all been talking, and we realize we haven't been as present as we should be. Tomorrow, 7 sharp. Everyone will be there. She hung up before I could respond. My phone exploded. 47 messages in 10 minutes. Daniel. Hey sis, long time. Mom says dinner tomorrow? Patricia. Can't wait to catch up. Love the car. Cousin Rachel. OMG Maya, we need to talk. Aunt Christine. Proud of you. See you tomorrow. People who hadn't acknowledged my existence in years were suddenly desperate to reconnect. My wedding, my birthday, my struggles, none of that had mattered. But one photo of a luxury car? Suddenly, I was family again. Marcus found me staring at my phone. What's wrong? They want to have dinner. All of them. Tomorrow. He read through the messages, his jaw tightening. They ignored our wedding, Maya. I know. They haven't called you in months. I know. So why are you considering it? I looked at him, a plan already forming. Because this time, I'm not going alone, and I'm not going unprepared. My first call was to Jonathan Park. Maya? Celebrating properly, I hope? Actually, I need advice. It's personal. I explained the situation, the years of dismissal, the sudden interest after the Porsche photo, tomorrow's ambush dinner. Jonathan listened without interrupting. They don't know about the acquisition? He asked. No one does, except Marcus and the team. A long pause. Maya, I built Nexus from nothing while my family called me a dreamer wasting my MIT degree. Want to know what changed their minds? What? Documentation. Undeniable, legal, public documentation. His voice carried hard-earned wisdom. Bring proof. Make it undeniable. And Maya, bring backup. Backup? Someone who can verify your success independently. Someone they can't dismiss or minimize. Think about it. My second call was to David Chen, our acquisition lawyer. Maya, congratulations again on... David, I need a favor. Can you prepare authenticated copies of the acquisition documents, the ones suitable for public disclosure? Of course, but why? And David, what's your Thursday evening looking like? A chuckle. Are you asking me to dinner? In a way. How do you feel about French food and family drama? Intriguing. Should I wear the Armani or the Tom Ford? Definitely the Armani. And David? Bring your business cards. The ones that mention your senior partner at Fuller, Chen and Associates. This sounds like it's going to be interesting. You have no idea. After hanging up, I sat in my home office, staring at the framed first dollar our startup had earned. 3 years of being ignored, dismissed, written off as the family failure. Sometimes family needs documentation, Jonathan had said. Tomorrow, they'd get more documentation than they bargained for. Thursday arrived gray and drizzling, perfect weather for what was coming. I spent the morning at Nordstrom with a personal shopper. I need something that says successful but not trying too hard, I told her. She pulled a black Saint Laurent suit. Power move? Something like that. David had the documents prepared, official copies with the Nexus Technologies letterhead, the acquisition sum clearly visible, all properly notarized. He slid them into a leather portfolio that probably cost more than my old monthly rent. Remember, he coached, you don't owe them anything. Not explanations, not money, not forgiveness. Marcus wanted to come, but I needed him to stay home. This is something I have to do myself. Well, mostly myself. I arrived at Chez Laurent 20 minutes early and spoke with the maitre d'. I need a favor. The Smith party at 7. Can you ensure we're seated in the main dining room, not a private space? He glanced at his reservation tablet. Party of 12, private room booked by Linda Smith. I slipped him $200. Main dining room, please. A knowing smile. Of course, madame. The table near the windows will be perfect. Very visible. At 6:45, I texted David. They booked a private room. I changed it to main floor. His response? Strategic. See you at 7:15. Let them get comfortable first. I sat in my car watching successful people enter the restaurant. Doctors, lawyers, tech executives, the kind of people my parents respected, the kind they thought I'd never become. My phone buzzed. Mom. We're here. Can't wait to see you. I checked my reflection one last time. The suit fit perfectly. The Cartier watch Marcus had given me as a wedding gift caught the light. I looked like success because I was. Because the main dining room at Chez Laurent hummed with elegant conversation. Crystal clinked against china. Soft piano jazz floated through the air. Every table filled with Boston's elite. Exactly the audience I needed. My family had claimed the prime window table, all 12 of them. They looked like a magazine spread for successful American dynasties. Mom saw me first. Maya, oh, darling, you look wonderful. She air-kissed my cheeks, her Chanel No. 5 overwhelming. The same perfume she wore to Daniel's medical school graduation, the one I wasn't invited to. Our baby girl, the tech genius, she announced loudly enough for neighboring tables to hear. Tech genius? Last time we spoke, she called it playing with computers. Dad stood, awkward, extending his hand like I was a colleague instead of his daughter. Maya, good to see you. Daniel rose halfway, Patricia pulling him back down. Nice car, sis. Business must be good. Aunt Christine, Uncle Richard, cousins Rachel and Mark, all smiling like we were one big happy family, like they hadn't unfriended me on Facebook 2 years ago. The waiter appeared. Champagne for the table? Dom Perignon, Dad ordered, playing the gracious patriarch. We're celebrating. What are we celebrating? I asked, voice steady. Family, Mom said quickly. Being together. The couple at the next table glanced over, recognizing Dad from his hospital commercials. Perfect. So Maya, Daniel leaned forward. Tell us about this tech thing you're doing. Tech thing. My $47 million tech thing. It's going well, I said simply. Well enough for a Porsche, apparently, Patricia added, her smile sharp. Must be nice. The champagne arrived. Dad raised his glass. To family. Everyone echoed except me. I left my glass untouched, checking my phone. 7:14. One more minute. The pleasantries lasted exactly 3 minutes after the champagne toast. So Maya, Dad began, swirling his wine, I'm expanding the practice, opening a new surgical center, very expensive, but it'll serve underserved communities. He paused meaningfully. I'm looking for investors. There it was. How much? I asked. 2 million, but for family, even 100,000 would help. Mom jumped in. It's really an investment in community health. You understand that, working in healthcare technology. Like they had any idea what I actually did. Daniel cleared his throat. Speaking of investments, Patricia and I are looking at houses. Boston real estate is insane right now. We could really use help with the down payment. How much? I repeated. 250 would be life-changing, he said, trying for casual. Aunt Christine couldn't resist. Rachel's starting at Wellesley next year. The tuition is astronomical. The requests came faster now, each wrapped in justification. Uncle Richard's new dental practice, cousin Mark's startup idea, Mom's charity gala sponsorship. Family supports family, right, Maya? Daniel said, the same tone he'd used when taking my toys as children. That's what Dad always taught us. The irony almost made me laugh. Family supports family, except when that family member drops out of medical school. Then they're on their own. Interesting philosophy, I said. Where was that support during my wedding? The table went silent. Neighboring diners glanced over, sensing tension. Mom's smile faltered. Maya, or the past 5 years? When was the last time any of you asked about my life, my work, my husband? Let's not make a scene, Dad said quietly, noticing the attention. I smiled. Oh, I'm just getting started. But first, I want you to meet someone. Before my guest arrives, I said, voice carrying clearly, I have some questions. The restaurant seemed quiet, as if sensing drama. 3 tables of Boston's medical elite were definitely listening now. Mom, Dad, do you remember my wedding date? Mom's fingers fidgeted with her napkin. Maya, that's not... June 15th, 3 months ago. You said you had prior commitments. We did, Dad started. A golf tournament. I saw the pictures. I turned to Daniel. You gave a speech about partnership and loyalty that day. Ironic. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. The couple at the next table had stopped eating entirely. Do any of you know what my company does? Silence. What my husband's name is? More silence. How about this? When's the last time any of you called me? Not texted about needing something, actually called to see how I was? Rachel looked down. Mark studied his water glass. Even Aunt Christine avoided eye contact. 5 years, I answered for them. 5 years of silence. Until tonight. Until you saw that car. Maya, please, Mom whispered, her face reddening as she noticed Dr. Morrison from Mass General 2 tables over. People are watching. Good. They should see this. I pulled out my phone. Do you know what I was doing while you were all ignoring me? Daniel rolled his eyes. Building an app? Building a company that saves lives. Creating technology that prevents medical errors. The same errors that kill 250,000 patients annually. Dad's jaw tightened. He hated when people mentioned medical errors. But you wouldn't know that, because you never asked. The maitre d' approached our table, David Chen beside him in his impeccable Armani suit, leather portfolio in hand. Ah, I stood. Perfect timing. This is where things get interesting. If you think family should support you unconditionally, not just when you're successful, give this video a thumbs up. Have you ever had family members suddenly remember you exist after success? Share your story in the comments. And if you want to see how I handled this situation with class and boundaries, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Here comes the moment that shocked everyone. David Chen commanded attention without trying. 6'2", silver temples despite being only 40, carrying himself with the confidence of someone who'd won cases against Fortune 100 companies. Good evening, he said, his voice carrying across the now silent section of the restaurant. I'm David Chen, senior partner at Fuller, Chen & Associates. Mom's eyes widened. Even she knew that firm. They'd handled the biggest medical malpractice cases in Massachusetts. And you are? Dad asked, trying to maintain authority. Ms. Smith's legal counsel. David set the leather portfolio on the table with deliberate precision. She asked me to join tonight to provide some documentation. Documentation? Daniel scoffed. For a family dinner? The entire restaurant was watching now. I recognized the Hendersons from the country club, Dr. Williams from Harvard Medical, and at least 3 of Dad's golf buddies. Perfect. Maya, what is this? Mom hissed. David pulled out a chair, sitting with unhurried grace. Ms. Smith thought you should understand the full scope of her recent business transaction. Business transaction? Dad repeated. I noticed servers had stopped moving, pretending to polish glasses while watching our table. The piano player had even softened his playing. The one that prompted tonight's sudden family reunion, David said smoothly, after 5 years of silence. Patricia gasped softly. Several nearby diners weren't even pretending not to stare anymore. David opened the portfolio, revealing documents with the Nexus Technologies letterhead clearly visible. The corporate seal caught the light. What is that? Aunt Christine whispered. The answer to why you're all suddenly interested in Maya's life, David replied, his tone professionally neutral but somehow devastating. Mom reached for the documents. David pulled them back slightly. Before we proceed, Ms. Smith has something to say. I stood, picking up the documents myself. The Nexus Technologies logo gleamed under the restaurant's soft lighting. 3 months ago, while you were all at Daniel's golf tournament instead of my wedding, I closed the biggest deal of my life. I opened the first page, holding it so neighboring tables could glimpse the letterhead. Nexus Technologies, a Fortune 500 company, acquired my startup. Acquired? Dad's voice cracked. I flipped to the signature page. The number was highlighted, impossible to miss, $47,000. Gasps rippled through the restaurant. Someone dropped a fork. The Hendersons were openly staring. Dr. Williams had his phone out. $47 million, I said clearly, plus retention bonuses, plus stock options. Mom's face went white. Daniel's mouth hung open. Patricia looked like she might faint. That's impossible, Daniel stammered. You dropped out. You're not even a real doctor. No, I agreed. I'm the CEO of a company that will prevent more medical errors than you'll ever fix in surgery. The silence was deafening. Every eye in the restaurant was on our table. I saw phones discreetly recording. Dad reached for the documents with shaking hands. David nodded, allowing him to examine them. These are authenticated copies, David added helpfully. The acquisition was finalized last Thursday. Last Thursday? Mom whispered. The Porsche was a small celebration gift to myself, 1% of the deal value, actually. Uncle Richard was doing math on his phone. Aunt Christine had tears in her eyes, though I doubt they were from pride. You're worth millions? Rachel said, awed. I've been worth your respect all along, I corrected. The money just makes it harder to ignore. The maitre d' approached with champagne. Compliments of Mr. Henderson. Congratulations on your success, Ms. Smith. I remained standing, every eye in Chez Laurent fixed on our table. Now let's discuss why we're really here tonight. Mom started to speak, but I raised my hand. She actually stopped. You want back in my life because I have money now. Let's not pretend otherwise. Maya, that's not, Dad began. Please. You haven't called in 5 years. You missed my wedding for golf. You removed me from family photos. But 17 minutes after I post a car photo, suddenly you need an urgent family meeting? The brutal honesty made several relatives squirm. Good. So here's my offer. One condition for anyone who wants to be part of my life going forward. I looked at each of them in turn. The restaurant held its breath. Apologize. Right here. Right now. Publicly acknowledge how you treated me for the past 5 years. Maya, Mom whispered, glancing at the watching diners. Be reasonable. Admit you were wrong to dismiss me. Admit you chose favorites. Admit you failed as parents, as siblings, as family. Daniel's face flushed red. This is blackmail. No, David interjected calmly. It's a boundary. Ms. Smith is establishing terms for personal relationships. Quite reasonable, actually. If you can't acknowledge what you did, I continued, then we're done, permanently. No money, no relationship, no contact. Dad looked around at the watching faces, his colleagues, his clients, his reputation hanging in the balance. You have 60 seconds to decide, I said, checking my Cartier watch. Starting now. The piano had stopped entirely. You could hear champagne bubbles popping in the silence. 50 seconds. Mom grabbed Dad's arm, whispering frantically. Daniel and Patricia argued in hisses. The aunts and uncles exchanged panicked looks. 30 seconds. The 60 seconds felt like an hour. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. This is ridiculous. We're your family. 20 seconds, I said calmly. Robert, just do it, Mom hissed, her eyes darting to the Hendersons' table where phones were definitely recording. I will not be extorted by my own daughter. It's not extortion, David said mildly. She's not threatening you. She's offering you a choice. 10 seconds. Daniel stood abruptly. This is insane. Maya, you can't just… 5 seconds. Patricia grabbed Daniel's arm. Sit down. Do you know what 47 million means? 3. Mom's hands shook. Aunt Christine was crying. Rachel looked between me and her parents, confused and scared. 2. Wait. Mom stood suddenly, her chair scraping. The sound echoed through the silent restaurant. 1. I'm sorry. The words burst from her like a dam breaking. Everyone froze. Mom stood there, trembling, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. The entire restaurant watched, transfixed. I'm sorry, Maya, she repeated, voice cracking. I was wrong. We were wrong. Dad tried to pull her down. Linda, don't… She shook him off. No, Robert, she's right. We failed her. Dr. Morrison at the nearby table had his phone out, openly recording now. The Hendersons leaned forward in their seats. Mom looked directly at me, and for the first time in 5 years, I saw my actual mother, not the society woman she'd become. We chose favorites. We punished you for choosing your own path. We missed your wedding because we were petty and proud. Her voice broke completely. We were wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Maya. Mom's apology hung in the air like a challenge to the others. We told people you were lost, she continued, voice stronger now despite the tears. The truth is, we were the lost ones, lost in our own narrow definition of success. The restaurant remained silent, captivated. This was better than dinner theater. You built something incredible while we pretended you didn't exist. You got married without your family because we were too proud to admit we were wrong. She looked at the relatives around the table. We all were. Dad stood slowly, his face no longer purple but ashen. He looked every one of his 60 years. Maya, he began, then stopped, clearing his throat. I spent 40 years building my reputation, saving lives, being respected. He paused, looking at his colleagues watching from other tables. But I failed at the most important job, being your father. The words seemed to physically pain him. You were right to leave medicine. You've saved more lives with your technology than I ever will with my hands. His voice cracked. I was wrong. About everything. I'm sorry. One by one, like dominoes, the apologies came. Daniel, voice thick. I was jealous. You had the courage to leave and I didn't. I'm sorry, Maya. Patricia quietly. We were horrible to you. I'm sorry. Aunt Christine through tears. We sided with your parents without thinking. We failed you too. Even Cousin Rachel. I'm sorry I unfriended you. Mom made me, but I should have stood up to her. The restaurant burst into spontaneous applause. Actual applause, led by Mr. Henderson himself. But I wasn't done yet. I appreciate the apologies, I said, voice steady, but apologies are just words, I continued, the applause dying down. What matters is what happens next. A familiar voice came from behind me. Well said, Maya. Everyone turned. Jonathan Park stood there, the CEO of Nexus Technologies himself, looking every inch the billionaire he was. Mom gasped. Dad's eyes widened in recognition. Jonathan had been on the cover of Forbes just last month. Mr. Park? I said, genuinely surprised. David mentioned you might need moral support. He placed a hand on my shoulder, addressing my family. You should know that your daughter is one of the most brilliant minds I've ever encountered. He looked at my father specifically. Dr. Smith, your daughter's technology will be integrated into every Nexus medical facility globally. She'll prevent more deaths in 1 year than most doctors do in a lifetime. Dad looked stunned. This was pure validation from someone even he couldn't dismiss. The acquisition price, Jonathan continued, it was actually below market value. We got a bargain. Maya could have held out for more, but she wanted to ensure her technology reached patients quickly. Daniel's jaw dropped. More than 47 million? She also insisted on one condition, Jonathan added, that her team, all 23 employees, received full benefits and stock options. She protected everyone but herself in negotiations. I hadn't expected him to share that. Mom was crying again, but differently this time. You did that? Family isn't just blood, I said, looking at each of them. It's the people who stand by you when you're nobody. My team was my family when you weren't. The truth of it seemed to hit them all at once. They'd missed not just my success, but my entire journey. So, I said, apology accepted, but we start over, from zero. Within 12 hours, the video went viral. Boston medical dynasty gets schooled by dropout daughter, read the headline on Boston.com. Someone had filmed everything from the moment David arrived until Jonathan left. 3 million views by morning. Dad called me at 6 a.m. Maya, I've had 4 patients cancel already. I didn't post the video, Dad. I know. He sighed heavily. I'm not calling to complain. I'm calling because they're right to cancel. What kind of doctor dismisses innovation because it doesn't come with an MD? It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Daniel texted, getting roasted at work. Nurses keep asking if I need help recognizing success. Deserved it, though. But not all consequences were negative. Mom called that afternoon, voice tentative. Maya, I've had 17 people reach out. Parents with kids in tech, medicine, arts, all saying they needed to see this, that they've been making the same mistakes. The viral moment became a mirror for other families. Patricia sent a long email apologizing again, admitting she'd encouraged Daniel's dismissive attitude because she'd been jealous of my independence. Even Aunt Christine faced her own reckoning. Rachel won't speak to me, she admitted. Says if I could cut you off for choosing your path, what happens if she doesn't become what I expect? The video had done what 5 years of silence couldn't, force them to see themselves clearly, but the most unexpected call came from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Smith, this is Dr. Sarah Chen from Boston Children's Hospital. We saw the video. We'd like to discuss implementing your technology in our pediatric ward, and my daughter just dropped pre-med for computer science. Thank you for giving me perspective. 6 months later, we met for coffee. Just coffee. Not Chez Laurent, not the country club, a simple cafe downtown. I've been reading about machine learning, Dad said, pulling out a tablet covered in sticky notes. Trying to understand what you built. The effort touched me more than any apology could. This algorithm here, he pointed to his notes. It identifies patterns humans miss. Exactly. It can predict cardiac events up to 6 hours before symptoms appear. His eyes lit up, the same way they used to when I'd aced biology tests in high school. Maya, that's revolutionary. We met monthly after that. Small steps. Dad learned Python. Mom started attending tech conferences with me, introducing herself as Maya's mother with genuine pride. Daniel was different too. I've been thinking about integrating AI into surgery prep, he said one day. Would you consult? I charge family full price, I said, half joking. Worth it, he replied, fully serious. But boundaries remained firm. No loans, no investments, no bailouts. They had to want a relationship with me, not my bank account. I respect that, Mom said, when I declined to fund her charity gala. We need to earn our place in your life. They started showing up for the right reasons. Dad attended Marcus's birthday dinner. Mom sent congratulations when my second startup secured seed funding, before it made headlines. We're learning, she said simply. The family photos reappeared on Facebook, but now with honest captions, dinner with Maya, our tech CEO daughter who's changing healthcare. Not perfect, never perfect, but real. Rachel summed it up best. You taught us that family isn't automatic, it's earned, both ways. Boundaries hadn't destroyed our relationship. They'd saved it. The ripple effects spread far beyond my family. My inbox flooded with messages from people who'd lived similar stories. Young entrepreneurs whose parents wanted them to be doctors. Artists whose families called them failures. Scientists dismissed for choosing research over riches. Your video saved my relationship with my daughter, one father wrote. I've been pushing her toward law school for 3 years. She wants to be a teacher. After seeing your story, I finally asked her why. Turns out she wants to help kids like she was. Dyslexic, struggling, written off. I was so busy planning her success, I never saw her heart. I started speaking at conferences, not about technology, but about family dynamics and success. The title that drew the biggest crowds? When your achievement doesn't match their expectations. 3 universities invited me to speak at graduations. Each time, parents approached afterward, tears in their eyes, finally understanding why their child chose a different path. But the most meaningful moment came at MIT's Entrepreneurship Summit. A young woman, maybe 22, waited until everyone else had left. I'm dropping out, she said quietly. Starting a company. My parents are doctors. They'll disown me. I gave her my card. Call me after you tell them. Whatever happens, you're not alone. She called 3 weeks later, sobbing. Her parents had cut her off completely. What do I do? She asked. You build something amazing. You surround yourself with people who believe in your vision, and you leave the door open for when they're ready to see who you really are. 2 years later, She sold her company for 12 million. Her parents called the next day. Set boundaries, I advised. Make them earn their way back. She did. Looking back, the money was never the point. $47 million didn't change my worth as a person. It just made it harder for my family to ignore what was always there: my value, my potential, my right to choose my own path. The saddest part? If the acquisition had fallen through, if I'd failed, they never would have called. I would have remained the ghost at the edges of family photos, the cautionary tale whispered at reunions. We would have come around eventually, Mom insisted one day. No, I said gently, you wouldn't have. She didn't argue. We both knew the truth. Success shouldn't be the price of admission to your family's love. A Porsche shouldn't be what makes you worth their time. But for so many of us, that's exactly how it works. I think about all the failures out there: the medical school dropouts, the artists working coffee shops, the entrepreneurs whose first 3 companies crashed. They're not failures. They're just on journeys their families don't understand. Your worth isn't your net worth. Your value isn't your job title. Your significance isn't measured by whether you followed the path others laid out for you. I didn't need millions to deserve their love. None of us do. But sometimes, the only way to make people see your worth is to make it undeniable. Sometimes, boundaries have to be drawn in public, with witnesses and documentation. Sometimes, family needs to lose you to find you. The Porsche sits in my garage now, rarely driven. It served its purpose, not as a status symbol, but as a catalyst, the smallest spark that lit a necessary fire. I didn't need millions to deserve their love, I tell audiences now. Neither do you. Today, my family and I have something we never had before: honesty. We meet for dinner monthly. Real dinners, not ambushes. They ask about my work with genuine interest. I celebrate Daniel's surgical innovations without resentment. Mom shares her vulnerabilities instead of her social mask. It's not perfect. Some wounds cut too deep to fully heal. But it's real, built on boundaries and respect rather than obligation and assumptions. The Porsche? I still own it, but Marcus drives it more than I do. It reminds me that sometimes the smallest action, one photo, 17 minutes, can change everything. My father said something recently that stays with me. I spent 40 years saving lives, but I almost lost my daughter. You taught me that success without family isn't success at all. He was wrong about that too. Success is choosing yourself when no one else does. Family is just the people who eventually catch up. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories about standing up for yourself with grace and dignity. And remember, you don't need anyone's validation to know your worth. What boundaries do you need to set today?